Hello, everyone, and welcome to the SGPN Fantasy Football Podcast. I am joined by Justin Bruni this morning. How are we doing?
Hey, doing good, doing good. Happy Sunday. Another Sunday closer to some more NFL action.
I know, yeah, here we go. One more week closer. We're getting close to the NFL draft as well. I was just perusing here. I was tweeting out the link and everything, and I noticed I put my handle wrong on the tweet. Whoops.
Damn.
I was like, why isn't it linking? Why can't I retweet this live link? So,
I see everybody. It at Dynasty and at Dynasty.
Something like that. Well, that'll be my name today. That's what we'll roll with. That's where I'm at. Like I said, usually on these Sunday mornings, it was a long week thing called Restaurant Week in Colorado. Everybody goes out and eats like every night for 10 days. And, working as a bartender, it was a little bit hectic. So a little bit sleep deprived. So that shows, I guess, with my typing skills today. But here we are. We're going to rock out a Superflex rookie mock draft today. Some post NFL combine. We were just chatting before the show, and I noticed we have a few differences in our rankings.
Yep.
So it should be for some good podcasting. But before we jump into it here, I just want to give a quick shout out to our friends over at WynnBET. The Sports Gambling Fantasy Football Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is presented by WynnBET. WynnBET is now live in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Louisiana, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Tennessee, and Virginia. From boosted same-game parlays to live in-game odds, WynnBET has what you need to win. Sign up today, bet $100, and get $100 at sportsgamblingpodcast.com/WynnBET. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/WYNNBET. State restrictions apply. We're also brought to you by the DGen Dance. Our March Madness bankroll contest is back, free to enter, and $1,000 in cash and prizes up for grabs. Plus, we've got first half under bingo. Enter both contests on the SGPN app. All right, and we will jump in here. So I just figured, it'd be a good time to do a little 12-pick mock draft. Considering, right after the NFL Combine, this is when the rankings really shake up. Some people are going to be diving into their dynasty rookie drafts here shortly. Others like myself, I'm too hesitant. I'm not brave enough to stake on my own evaluations this early. I like to wait till after the NFL draft. What about you?
No, I absolutely like to wait till after the NFL draft. And I think that, doing it beforehand just definitely takes your league up to a more serious level, which by all means, go right ahead. If all of your league mates are, that aggressive and that knowledgeable, then I think that it's fine. But if you are still doing, a dynasty league with a little bit more, casualness, I think you should probably wait. It's going to be a lot more fun. You're going to get the landing spots. A lot of folks wait for after the draft, after free agency. Obviously, we have coming up starting this week, but I think the median would be after free agency, but before the NFL draft. I wouldn't hate it doing it a week before the NFL draft, but I think that's probably as close as I would cut it.
Yeah, I'm just not. I remember a couple of years ago, Kelvin Harmon going first overall. I don't know if you remember Kelvin Harmon. He was a dynasty darling up until April. I think he ended up going in the 7th round, and I saw him go in the first. Now it was This was aggressive. This was somebody who's was reaching a little bit, but it wasn't unheard of. He was a consensus top 5 pick. And so, that was the same year, I believe, Hakeem Butler came out, and he was also that was like a disaster year. That was like when Miles Sanders came out, and it was like Andy Isabella too. So, Debo Samuel.
Andy Isabella, may he rest in peace.
DK Metcalf and Debo Samuel, I believe, were the big successes out of that class. David Montgomery and Miles Sanders have had nice. Josh Jacobs, of course, probably the first, should have been the first overall pick in that draft, but we can digress. But so with that, we didn't even talk about who's getting the first pick, but I'll throw that to you. I'll give you the starting off this Superflex rookie mock draft with the first overall pick. I'll let you do that let you explain why you're taking Bijan Robinson, I'm sure.
He's generational talent at the running back position. Every comp that he's gotten to elite running backs, I don't see why we're not taking him at 101. The only argument that I could make against him is if, you somehow are stacked at running back. If you somehow have Jonathan Taylor and Breece Hall, guys that are going to be responding from injury seasons, that we feel really good about. And you would just have to be overly thirsty at the quarterback position. If for some reason you feel like you don't need Bijan, I would look to be trading back the 101 and maybe get a little bit of a haul, maybe get another late first or another second round pick if you feel like you're already loaded up at running back. But Bijan's been the clear number 101 for months now. I don't see any narratives changing that, even a landing spot.
Yeah, I don't see that either. I was trying to think the other day of a place where Bijan Robinson could go that would make me not take him number one overall, and I couldn't. I was thinking
Yeah.
like Texans. You know what I mean? Wherever. You know what I mean?
No, just fine. Just fine with the
And
Texans.
yeah, if he goes to the Dallas Cowboys and is playing with Tony Pollard for a year, that's
Yep.
fine.
Yep.
If the Eagles playing with Jalen Hurts, I'm fine with that too. Some of those aren't
Yep.
my ideal landing
But
spots.
that's a great offense. That's a great offense.
Great offense going to take over in a year. You know what I mean? Tony Pollard's on the franchise tag. I've just seen that discussed as a possibility, and I could see that happening.
What about the NFL's leading rushing offense, the Chicago Bears? What about that?
Okay, you know what? I've heard people discuss this possibility, and here is where I would push back on that. And here's where I would push back on the Philadelphia Eagles selecting him too. So you have a rushing quarterback already, and then you're going to get a generational running back prospect. So you're invested so much in running in a game where the NFL does not value that as much anymore. In a game where there's the metrics suggest you should be passing the ball. So I just wonder if the Eagles and the Bears, as just a team fit, this is excluding fantasy football, but just as far as the game planning for an NFL, is that smart for them to be almost running like a high school offense might, you know what I mean? Just very heavy on rushing, you know what I mean? So it's just the metrics, if you're trying to compete against Patrick Mahomes, are you going to be able to rush, you know what I mean? Is Bijan Robinson going to be phased out in those games? Because, obviously he's not going to be phased out. That was a poor choice of words.
No, I mean,
because he's going to with his receiving work. Yeah,
exactly. Because he's going to be used in the receiving game. And my pushback to that is you're just too loaded up on the run game. Well, the Bears just landed DJ Moore, right? That's pretty much an extra first round pick, really elevates the offense. Don't think that they're done shopping for the position either. And I just feel like in this league, yeah, you have to be a passing team. You have to be able to push the ball down the field, but also at the same time, you need to be multifaceted. And I feel like that's what the Eagles were this year. And I think either of those offenses, because they are, I guess, predominantly run first teams, it's tough with the Eagles because they are a little bit more balanced. But I just think that it gives both of those teams just that next level running ability, to take their teams to the next step. For the Eagles, it could be winning a Super Bowl. For the Bears, it could be a playoff berth and potentially the NFC Championship. So I think those are hurdles that they're trying to get over. And I think someone as young as Bijan and the talent that he brings, he helps move you closer to getting over that hump.
Of course it makes your team better, and I might be forecasting, of course the Bears goal probably right now is to make the playoffs. You know what I mean? So, right. I may be forecasting, what we're, trying to play against, the best of the best. And, just one thing I noticed, playing the Tennessee Titans, for example, over the years, they were very good at what they did, running Derrick Henry and playing good defense. But when they played Patrick Mahomes this last couple of years, you know what I mean? It took them out of what they were good at. And then all of a sudden, when they're trying to play catch up with Patrick Mahomes down by 10 points, the game's already over. They can't.
My argument to that would be is that you're easily more able to scheme up against Ryan Tannehill. So you let Derrick Henry eat. You let him do what he does, and then you let Tannehill take his shots, and you try to counter on one of those, which is probably more likely. But when you have a guy like Justin Fields or a guy like Jalen Hurts that again is multifaceted, can pass, can run, and they are run first players, right? Like they have play calling that sets them up to just go snap and go whatever direction. And yeah, you might see, something that you may have saw in high school or in some low level college football, running the veer, running the triple option. But we've also seen some quarterbacks, kind of set themselves up from like Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts, right? They couldn't pass early on, but they ran and things developed for them. The tools were built around them and brought in. And I feel like that's what we're seeing with, the Bears and, potentially Bijan. It's been rumored that he could go off the board at 9. The Eagles could very well take him at 10. I don't see him falling past Tampa Bay at 19. Tampa is my after call for the Bears and the Eagles at 9 and 10.
So that would be early for me on the back, but Bijan Robinson is that guy. He just doesn't have, I'll throw more concern out there. He just doesn't quite have that athletic profile of Saquon Barkley. Is the reason maybe I wouldn't take him at top. And he's 80th percentile in everything he tested at the NFL Combine. He's a great athlete, but just not quite that Saquon Barkley level athlete. But some of the two spots that I had was the Commanders. I believe maybe it's 16 or 17. They're right there. They're right in the middle of that first round. I had that as a potential landing spot. And then I also with the, we were talking about Dalvin Cook trade before the show started, and I had the Vikings at about pick. I don't have the picks. I remember them being at 23 or 24. I should have wrote it down exactly, but the Vikings are right in that 22 to 24 range. So those were two landing spots that I liked for him as well. What do you think about those?
So 20 through 23 is Seahawks, Chargers, Ravens, Vikings. I mean, yeah, if you see an exit of Dalvin Cook and Alexander Madison, the Vikings become a very, prime spot to draft a running back for sure. With his talent level, it's just hard for me to believe that he's going to make it past these guys. You also have, the Texans that do pick at 12 again. I have them taking in another position player at that spot if they wanted to really lean into the run game. That could be something that they do. Yeah, I mean, it's tough because if he doesn't go through that break right there, if he doesn't get picked by pick 20, in my opinion, he's probably not getting. I mean, I don't think he would make it out of the first round. So the Bills or the Bengals, I would say, would definitely be destinations I could see him landing at the end of the first.
It'll be interesting. And like I said, one spot that made sense to me that nobody really talked about was the Commanders in the middle of the first round too. So
yeah, I wanted to pick your brain on that a little bit more. I mean, they still have Bijan Robinson. They have Antonio Gibson still rostered. What are your thoughts there?
I just see teams do this kind of stuff all the time, and I think, just with what the Commanders look like that they're going to want to do this year, so, rolling in with Sam Howell, and they're going to bring in somebody else. I know that, but we don't know who that is yet. So I think, running through Bijan Robinson, and I think Antonio Gibson and guys like that, they're not going to worry about that. Bijan Robinson can be more of a supplementary back. Maybe, I wasn't too particularly impressed with him last year. So, I just see teams all the time overdraft at the running back position, and when they already have guys there. So, this was just an interesting spot for me and somewhere I could definitely see him getting a lot of volume.
Right. What do you think about, I mean, we'll get to his name, but I thought about them drafting a receiver. Actually, yeah, let's hold off because I'll bring up his name when we get to him. I don't want to get too driven into this first pick here.
All right. Sounds good. With that, we'll go to the second pick here. And I'm going to, since this is a super flex draft, I'm going to go with a quarterback. I'm going to go with CJ Stroud.
Yeah.
Above average arm strength, he's at, good athleticism, has the arm talent, mobile enough. His best trait is his accuracy, I would say. I feel like people have gotten kind of a little bit bored with him these last couple of years because, he was the consensus kind of 1-1 for a little while. People viewed him as that in Superflex League. People viewed him as a great prospect. And, I feel like he had a good year and, he's just kind of fallen down draft boards. I feel like a little bit unnecessarily, a little bit of a rebound this past week. At least earlier in the offseason, the consensus was Bryce Young's the first pick. And then the NFL Combine reinforced, just kind of what an outlier Bryce Young is at the position. I was trying to find player comps. Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson, similar height, not similar body types. They are a lot thicker players. They have a lot more muscle on them than somebody Bryce Young does. And the closest one I could find was like Doug Flutie. You know what I mean? He of similar size, similar height, similar weight, and you know what I mean. And Doug Flutie, if we were playing fantasy, Doug Flutie was not a fantasy quarterback. We'll say that. So, I have CJ Stroud here. I believe he does have the safest floor of this class. He doesn't have the upside of a guy like Bryce Young or Richardson, maybe, in the best case scenario. But I feel safe that CJ Stroud is going to be playing from, 5 years from now. He's still going to be my starter in the Superflex League. So I'm going with the safe pick. I believe he is likely the number one pick overall with the Carolina Panthers as well. What do you think on that pick?
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue that whatsoever. To me, I have Jahmyr Gibbs written down. And again, this is just based off of your need, right? If you need a quarterback and you're in Superflex, CJ Stroud is the pick here for certain. But if you're already set, if you've already got QBs, I don't see the necessity to go out and draft your third or fourth QB at this level. So I have Jahmyr Gibbs down. Again, I think it's back and forth just based on need. I don't think there's necessarily a black and white answer here. Everyone's rosters are going to be different. So yeah, I have no argument against CJ Stroud. Excited to see him go to the Panthers. Excited to see what the Panthers are going to do to build around him. Now we see a Panthers team without CMC, no more DJ Moore. They need a tight end. They need receivers. They have what we feel like are decent running backs out of Donta Foreman and Chuba Hubbard, but they could be hungry for that position as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how they build up around him. They also pick, I believe, at pick 39. So, you're looking at CJ Stroud at 1, and then probably, your best looking receiver running back at probably pick 39. I think he'll be in a good position to take off here. But because the roster is, we'll say less talented right now, you may not be wanting to start him, every week, year one, unless you're really trying to get another top 5 pick in your Dynasty league.
Yeah, I agree. I think he might be more of a a low end, mid tier, low end quarterback too to start off with. You know, and he has mobility, but it's not like he's not going to have like significant rushing. It's more like
No,
probably
he's an awesome fluid pocket passer. I mean,
Yeah.
his throw ability and his arm, everything that we saw at the combine just reinforced what we knew about him already. He's going to be accurate. He's comfortable. And yeah, when he does need to move, he has that ability and that athleticism. So yeah, I'm excited about him. Like I said, as a Bears fan, super happy that we got this deal done, getting DJ Moore, getting a couple of first round picks, getting a late second in this draft. Absolute great move. At least for Chicago, I felt like the Panthers paid up a little bit too much, but thank you. Come again, baby. Let's go.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of CJ Stroud as well. Yeah, I just think he has a very safe floor, like you said. The arm talent is there. More of like a Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes kind of level of mobility, more of like a chain moving. You know what I mean? Not going to light the world on fire, but yeah, CJ Stroud's my pick there. And I think we got a little bit of a preview possibly of the third pick in the draft. Where are you going, number 3?
Well, I had Gibbs at 2. At number 3, I have Jackson Smith and Njigba.
Oh, but okay. But if you were drafting, so we'll treat this like a draft. So imagine you're going to take Jahmyr Gibbs here.
I'm going to take Jahmyr Gibbs. Yeah, I like him going to the Dolphins at pick 52. Right now, they have just one running back signed. Jahmyr Gibbs has been comped to Aaron Jones, Dalvin Cook, has the vision, has the speed, has the size. I like it. I feel like he could be a huge priority in that offense because you're looking at potentially bringing back Jeff Wilson, Raheem Mostert. Of course, it's all going to depend on the landing spot. If he goes to a backfield that's a little bit more, backed up, we'll say, if you have a couple of extra heads that need to eat, then by all means, you might knock him down a pick or two here. But it feels like he's the consensus, RB2 off the board here. So that's where I'm going. Again, it's based on need, right? If you need a quarterback, I feel like Stroud's that pick at 2 or 3. It's going to depend on how the board plays to you, but I'm still picking based on need. And if I'm like most of my teams, I need a running back. So I'm going Jahmyr Gibbs here.
Yeah, he does have a nice BMI. He is stand 5'9", 199 pounds, so he's a bit smaller than a guy like Dalvin Cook. And that's a little. This my head. I have him as my 5th ranked player. He would have been my 5th pick in the draft, just because of those concerns. There's a heavy correlation between of course with running backs opportunity. There's no better correlation with fantasy points than opportunity, and that may seem obvious, but but for a player like that, what that means is that for somebody, size is actually a big deal. You know what I mean? So there's actually, a big correlation between players who are lower than 205 pounds and above 205 pounds and the workload that they get. And like I said, Jahmyr Gibbs is 5'9", so 199 pounds actually isn't, if he was, I don't know exact science, but if he was 5'11", 6 foot tall, he'd probably be more like in the 210 range. But it's just a slightly smaller guy, never received a full workload in college. And his rushing efficiency hasn't been fantastic, wasn't fantastic last year. So those are just some of my small pushbacks and why I would rather go with a quarterback in those positions. But he is still my RB2 in the class. Especially in PPR leagues. Austin Eckler, is a little bit thicker guy for sure, but that is not a far off comparison. He's likely never going to get over 250 carries, I wouldn't think, in a season. But, like Austin Eckler could get a lot of receiving work. The Dolphins was somebody I really thought about him in that second round there, in that middle of the second round. If he was to sneak in the first round, Philadelphia would be a very good option, I thought. The Panthers in the second round would be very interesting at that 9 spot, like you were talking about, and on the Commanders as well. So those were some of my destinations. And he's probably floating in where, I was going to ask you where he was coming into your RB ranks. He's probably at a low end RB1 in Dynasty. RB2, you said?
No, I thought you meant in this class. He was my RB2 in this class. And just overall startup rankings, he would probably be at the back end of RB2, yeah.
Back end of RB2? That's the top 20. Okay, interesting. I have him probably floating in the top 12 backs for sure, just given the age of a lot of these backs, where we're at, I would take him above Joe Mixon. I would take him above, Dalvin Cook, all those guys. Nick Chubb, in my opinion,
in startups, he's probably going to go earlier than he should in comparison to some of the veterans I can get at later ADP. And that's what I'm valuing a little bit more, just getting those steals, or what I feel are better value, because people are going to rush up the board to take them. And especially right now, if that's going on, like if you're actually drafting, you don't have the landing spot. So as of today, I would be holding him back. If he was drafted to the Dolphins, I would probably have to move him up to like early RB1 territory for sure.
Okay. Landing spots, of course, is going to be huge, and it'll a lot depend on his workload. But yeah, I mean, somewhere like Buffalo, James Cook's a little too similar. Buffalo won't have his landing spot, but I
like someone that you really like to land in Buffalo, actually, but he's not going to be on this board. That's your boy Roschon.
Oh, Roschon Johnson would be he'd be a very good complement to James Cook, I think. So that would be very interesting.
Probably the best blocker at the running back position in this class, and I feel like that would be a huge asset for the Bills.
I'm a big fan of Roschon Johnson. I'm glad you mentioned that. We won't get to him today.
Right.
Roschon Johnson should not be going in the third round of rookie drafts. It'll be interesting because I think that for his relatively poor 40-yard dash time will create maybe a little bit of a buy low. If he would have ran in the 4.4s, that would have been it. He would have been going in the first round. So nice little buy low there. So with the fourth pick here, that's where we're at. Fourth pick, yeah. Fourth pick, I'm going to go with a quarterback again. I'm very quarterback heavy in my early drafts here. So I have Bryce Young. We were talking about his small stature.
Yeah.
And I was talking about the other day my difference between Superflex and one quarterback leagues. In one quarterback leagues, I do have Anthony Richardson as my quarterback one. I see him as the true difference maker in that format, whereas Bryce Young and CJ Stroud lack that mobility and would have to be, elite level passers to make difference in one quarterback format. So, but in Superflex, I believe they are much safer. You're talking about a player that's going to have a much more likely to be a long-term starter at the position. Yep. Bryce Young has everything you're looking for with arm talent. The big. If he was 6'3", he would be the consensus number one pick. You'd be taking him. You might take him over Bijan Robinson first overall. He's down here because he lacks mobility, and He's barely 5'10", just over 5'10", and 204 pounds after bulking. After eating a lot of Big Macs before the NFL Combine. So I just don't think. We're asking Bryce Young to be an extreme outlier. There aren't a lot of quarterbacks that aren't very mobile who are elite fantasy quarterbacks. And then you're asking him to do it at his size as well. So there's just a lot of things going into Bryce Young. And if anybody can do it, it's Bryce Young. He's very talented. And, he has that arm, he has a stronger arm than, CJ Stroud, I think, and I mean, and he's way, is far smaller, you know what I mean? And the ball comes out way, has just as much or more arm strength than Anthony Richardson threw, makes it look effortless, even at his size. So, that's not what we're talking about. It's just like, can he, Drew Brees is a fairly close comp, but, that's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. And that, that's what we're asking Bryce Young, I feel like, to do here. So, but he's still, that talent makes him, that upside, that talent puts him at he would have been my third ranked quarterback or my third ranked player. So Bryce Young here, it's a lot of risk, but there's a lot of upside. And if an NFL team is willing to take him number 2 or first overall or number 2, I'm willing to take him here in my fantasy drafts.
Got to throw the flag, bud. There it is. Challenge flag. I've got Bryce Young backed up. I've got him backed up to the end of the first round, unfortunately. And again, it's based on need. I've pulled Anthony Richardson ahead of him, just like the athletic ability. Love the size. I have Bryce Young also going to the Texans, and it feels like the Texans will probably pick him at number 2. They'll bring him in because, again, he is like this top prospect. You look at the eye test over the years, not just at the combine. I feel like NFL teams will prioritize him over Anthony Richardson. However, I think that the Texans will pick him and then bring in a bridge quarterback like a Jimmy Garoppolo that's been quite rumored, and Bryce Young may not, take the reins right away. Now, stealing the show from Jimmy Garoppolo, definitely, you're gonna have some opportunities there. Jimmy's gonna lay some eggs for you and potentially, get the fans, potentially the front office calling for Bryce Young's name more sooner than later. But I think that this is a pick that you're gonna have to wait on. I don't know if he's gonna be a week 1 starter, and it's not like that narrative that I just played out to the Texans. Bridge quarterback coming in, that sounds live. Until I see something different, I'm going to hold him to the back of round 1. I have him coming off my board at 111 in this first round. I have Anthony Richardson ahead of him. Again, you and I are a little bit more sporadic on how we've spread out the quarterbacks in this mock draft. So again, it's based on need. If you're super hungry, I get it, but I'm looking at Anthony Richardson ahead of him right now. I think Richardson's going to wind up with the Colts, going to be a week 1 starter.
I disagree here. I think Bryce Young is much more likely to be a week 1 starter than Anthony Richardson. I think Anthony Richardson might have to sit a little bit while because I think, it could be rough running an NFL offense at first form. Bryce Young, I think, is more ready to step in right away, lead an NFL offense, especially with that arm, Alabama, very pro style offense, a very experienced player here. I think, I think Bryce Young, it's just the question of, is he going to be able to make it through the season? You know what I mean? When he takes a hit, is he going to be able to, is it going to be more like a Tua? Tua's a lot bigger than he is too. So.
That's the thing with Alabama quarterbacks too. It's point and throw. I mean, it's the simple play calling is just, that's what it is. It's simple. The quarterbacks don't have really that much responsibility because they have so much talent around them. The playbook is just tailored to everybody's skills, receivers, quarterbacks, etc. So it's just point and throw for those guys. It's, obviously they play in, the SEC. It's super tough, but at the same time, like, the skill set that they always have, the receivers, the quarterbacks, like it's a very simplified system that doesn't really take that much to look electric on tape. I'm more interested to see, some more pro days, get a little bit more action. I don't know, man. The size is a concern for me. Like you had said, in comparison to Doug Flutie, you weren't writing home for Doug Flutie in fantasy, right? So until we see a little bit more, again, landing spot will definitely be a huge thing, but I see him, dealing with bridge quarterback issues. I don't know if anyone's going to overly commit to him. I mean, by all means, the Texans could draft Bryce Young and then Jackson Smith and Njigba, and we could be, talking up a little bit of a different story. But I don't know if anyone's going to give him the reins week 1.
If they take him 2 overall, I think he'll definitely be the week 1 starter. I don't think Davis Mills is going to keep him on. They could bring. I don't think they'll bring in it if they're investing the number 2 pick in him. I don't see them bringing in a significant quarterback. They might bring in somebody to kind of teach him the ropes a little bit, but
sure. Well, we'll see. We've seen that before with Trey Lance and Jimmy. Obviously, Trey Lance got hurt, but still, I mean,
I think Bryce Young is where Bryce Young is. This is a national champion. I just think 2-year starter. He has a lot more experience than Trey Lance had coming in, so I think we're going to see Bryce Young week 1 starter. I just worry about him holding up, but the talent is obviously there. Before I let you jump into the next pick really quick, I am just going to pay one more quick round of bills really quick.
Yep.
The DGen whoops, got a little ahead of myself there. WinBet, we're traveling out. WinBet one more time. WinBet is the official online sportsbook of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. WinBet is active in a bunch of states, and there are a ton of ways to win, including live betting and same-game parlays, aka WinBet's Build Your Own Bet. March Madness is almost here, plus plenty of ways to getting down on the NBA, NHL, and XFL. Sign up today to receive a special offer. Bet $100, get $100, limited to state availability. And, of course, for our DGens only, if you hit the biggest long shot parlay of the week, you get a $1,000 free credit. There's so much to choose from. All you have to do is head over to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/winbet so they know we sent you. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/WYNNBET. Offer subject to change. Terms and conditions at winbet.com. Must be 21 or older and present in the state where playthrough WinBet is available. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700. The DGen Dance, our March Madness bankroll contest is back. Free to enter and $1,000 in cash and prizes up for grabs. Plus, we've got first half over-under bingo where you can win a SGPN gift card. Enter both contests on the SGPN app. Had a little bit of a tongue twister there. Okay.
All right, so we're up to 1-5.
1-5. All right, this is your pick here. Who are you taking after I just selected another quarterback?
I'm taking Jackson Smith and Njigba. I have him going off the board at number 12 to the Houston Texans. Like I just laid out the narrative for them to bring in potentially Jimmy Garoppolo, Bryce Young. I think he'll be the number 1 target. They just signed Robert Woods to a free agent deal. They're going to have Nico Collins coming back. I don't think that Brandon Cooks will be on the roster. I like them to prioritize the wide receiver position, prioritize running back last year with Dameon Pierce. I don't think it's like the out of this world landing spot, but I think it's appropriate given his skill set, what we saw at him from the combine. I feel like he's going to be in a good position to just be that lead receiver on a team. I'm hoping it is a similar situation to the Texans because, again, they are depleted, but again, we're uncertain at the quarterback position. So if you get a balance out of that, maybe, a more crowded receiver room, but a better quarterback, I think that would kind of balance itself out.
I like that as well. JSN, I feel like is the safe pick there. You know what I mean? I feel like you're getting a reliable wide receiver too. I feel like you're getting, I feel like his floor is almost a safe wide receiver too.
Yep.
There are some concerns, about his frontline speed and his ability to play outside the slot. But we're talking about a guy who did outproduce Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave as a sophomore. He did have just 23 combined targets his other 2 years at Ohio State. So didn't do much as a freshman. Junior year was marred by injuries. So, we're banking off that elite sophomore year, but I think we saw all what we need to see there. He didn't run the 40 at the NFL Combine, but had the best 3-cone drill since, I believe, 2013. We talked about that a little last week. So that's a great, great landing spot, potentially with Bryce Young. I would project if he does go to number 12. The Patriots have also been discussed. The Packers are a possibility, although, they don't like to take a first-round wide receiver. That would be deep.
Packers at 15?
Yeah.
Okay.
Chargers, I think, if he was slipping in the late first round a little bit. Ravens.
What's the deal with that? What's the deal with the Chargers? Why do people keep talking about him going to the Chargers? Or the Chargers just taking a receiver overall? Like, I like Josh Palmer a lot. And it sounds like Keenan and Mike are both coming back. I don't get that.
I think what we saw last year is we saw Keenan Allen and Mike Williams barely play. And I think that is part of the concern here. I think, and plus I think they're probably planning for a future without probably Mike Williams and Keenan Allen on the team in 2024, 2025 by the latest. So
let those dudes walk then. What the hell, man? Just get them out now. It's killing me.
Well, here's the thing. I think they're stuck between kind of a rock and a hard place. I think that if ideally, they would like to move on from Keenan Allen probably for sure, but did Justin Herbert give you confidence last year that he can do it with less? You know what I mean? We saw him play without Mike Williams and Keenan Allen last year, and he struck. Mike Williams, Keenan Allen last year, and he struggled. Relatively speaking, Justin Herbert is still a very good quarterback, but he was not the same guy. And, so I don't think that, that didn't give them confidence, I believe, to let go of Keenan Allen. So I think that's why we saw him, but I think that they will continue to add to the receiving room here. Not that I think it's a possibility, I should say, that they add to the receiving room. I do think they'll probably add somebody in the second round, worst case scenario. So I just think, it could be a potential landing spot. And of course, tying yourself to Justin Herbert, there are certainly worse places to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I just thought it was interesting. I've seen a lot of people talking about them taking a receiver in the first, and it just doesn't seem like a team that needs to be that aggressive with the depth that they already have. I just assumed if you're going to, target that position day 2, round 2, round 3, whatever.
I think if you ask them, I think it's a very, if you ask them if they're going to get 34 games out of Keenan Allen and Mike Williams this year, I think, they do not expecting that. So I think that they might add somebody to the receiving group to help out Herbert a little bit.
That'll be interesting.
Oh man. All right. If I'm just going to keep going the quarterbacks here, if you're just going to keep leaving them for me.
Yeah. Sorry, bud.
I will take Anthony Richardson. He was my fourth, if I was just doing this draft by myself, he would have been my fourth pick in a Superflex draft, 6'4", 244 pounds. Second, he had the third fastest 40 time ever for a quarterback. And I don't know the other guys. I never heard of him before, but RG3 was somebody who had a slightly faster 40 than him, and RG3 was significantly smaller. So basically,
he was ahead of Cam Newton and ahead of Tim Tebow.
Yeah. It's just incredible. Greatest athlete of all time at the NFL Combine at the quarterback position. There's highlights of him destroying people, you know what I mean? Just, showing these moves, you know what I mean? But the tape is very raw. He hadn't done much his first 2 years at Florida. And then last year, the offense was a bit of a mess. He had some highlights, but overall still a very raw prospect. Has a long way to go in terms of learning an NFL offense. But, yes, obviously the comparisons to Cam Newton are there. Josh Allen, this big, physical, very athletic runner who can run over you and, beat you with his speed. So, for fantasy managers, he has the highest potential of anyone in this draft. You know what I mean? He could break fantasy football potentially. So that, that's where the upside is, but the floor is that, this guy can't run an NFL offense. You know what I mean? He goes out there and he can't complete it. He's a better passer than I think Malik Willis. I think he's more advanced and, in that yards and has more tools to work with. But, that's kind of what we're dealing with here. Somebody who could go out there and, struggles to complete 10 passes a game potentially, you know what I mean? So, he has a very wide range of outcomes, which kind of pushes him a little bit down my board. But in one quarterback drafts, he would have been more of a late first round pick, but he still would be my first quarterback selected. But yeah, I'm taking the upside here. I just think I didn't expect it to, have to, if this class materialized how I thought it was going to materialize, I probably wouldn't have taken Anthony Richardson here. But, the 2023 draft class, just with kind of a lot of size concerns, I mean, just like, man, can this guy, it's, and the NFL is changing a little bit, but man, there's just a lot of holes in all of these profiles. So Anthony Richardson, I'm willing to take the risk here. I thought, normally I don't like to take that big of a risk. I'm trying to get more of a solidified starter, but with the wide receivers being overall fairly small with some large prospect profiles, the running backs, same thing as well. I'm going to take Anthony Richardson. What do you think?
Yeah, I love the pick. I have him going at 1.8. You have him at 1.6. I could I could see anyone taking him. I think as you said, as early as 1.4, if the need is there. If you're very thirsty for the position, he's definitely someone that's going to quench your thirst. Love the playability, love the athleticism. I have him going off the board to the Colts at pick 4. I love him in potentially a new run first type of offense with him and Jonathan Taylor. I don't know if the Colts are going to invest that much into a bridge type quarterback. I feel like they're going to prioritize this position at their 4th pick. I've also heard, takes on him going number 1 to the Panthers. I'm not buying that. I think that that's a little bit aggressive. I don't think that he is worth that stock that they would have paid up for him. It is the NFL, though. We've seen some weird stuff happen. I just don't think that's going to be the case. I like him going to the Colts off the board at number 4, like I said. I don't know how I, love the potential dynasty or draft stock of, some of those receivers like, Michael Pittman or Alec Pierce, but I would definitely be moving, Jelani Woods up my board. I feel like Jonathan Taylor's probably steady Eddie at his ADP, with a run first type of QB, might even elevate it a little bit just because, again, you have to counter for that, second potential rushing attack. And yeah, you may see, what you would consider, high school play calling, but it may very well move the chains and get the team some points on the board.
Yeah, it'll, like I said, it'll be very interesting to see how all this stuff shakes out. I'm very nervous. You know what I mean? Like we saw what happened last year with Malik Willis. We saw, he was like the number 1 or number 2 overall in drafts and Superflex drafts, and then we saw him go in the 3rd round. And you know what I mean? And people who took him, I saw people take him 1st overall. I saw people take him in the 3rd round of a startup, startup draft. And now you're talking about a guy who is never. I'd be shocked if we saw Malik Willis outside of an injury start an NFL game.
I got Malik Willis really late last year. We're talking like round 3 and 4.
Well, that was afterward. You know what I mean? We're talking pre-NFL draft. You know what I mean?
Oh gosh, well, see,
that's why you wait, folks. Yeah, that's why you wait. So Anthony Richardson, I don't think that'll happen. I think we're seeing a little bit more information that people like Anthony Richardson going in the top 10. You know what I mean? Malik Willis, there were still rumors of him sliding down a little bit. So I do think Anthony Richardson's a top 10 pick, but just be careful if you're doing the draft now. Dot your I's, cross your T's. Next up here, I believe we're at 7 overall. Who do you have up?
Oh, let's see who is left on my. I got Zach Charbonnet. He's in my top 5 actually. I have him landing anywhere from pick 70 to 75. Ranging from the Saints, the Patriots, and the Falcons. Again, the landing spot's going to be very particular, but I think that his profile from what we saw from him in college is very good. He hit double-digit touchdowns in 3 seasons on 2 separate teams. A very strong runner, good vision, cutback ability. Not the greatest, change of direction or speed, but I feel like his skill set, that will develop. Like his skill set translates very well to the NFL. I think he can build up his NFL, body, the NFL build, if you will. If you look at, Hunter Renfrow, from college versus now, working in the NFL has its benefits. He's going to get bigger. He's going to get stronger. Landing spot will definitely be indicative of his, just overall dynasty value. Even in a crowded room, I still love this skill set. So I have him at 107 then. I had him coming off at 105 in my board.
That's early, and I do agree. I have Zach Charbonnet I had him as my 8th ranked player, so not too far behind. I just, I put the quarterback. I think I just value the quarterbacks a little bit more in the Superflex than you do. I'm willing to, take the chance. The quarterbacks might have the lowest floor, right? But I do think, if you grab that, you get Josh Allen, you get Justin Herbert, guys who had significant concerns, kind of guys that were kind of scoffed at a little bit. You know what I mean? Sure. They were like, oh, that guy. You know what I mean? I can't believe the NFL teams drafted that guy in the top 10. You know what I mean? That was kind of the attitude of Josh Allen. That was kind of the attitude of Justin Herbert in those drafts. So we don't know everything. You know what I mean? So Will Levis, Anthony Richardson, guys like that have a lot of upside, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Well, so for example, if you have quarterbacks like Jimmy G, Daniel Jones, and Desmond Ridder, yeah, you need to prioritize all these quarterbacks we just listed as like your top 5 picks for certain. Like every one of those guys should be on the table, even if there's a complete run at quarterback. But, if you're telling me you have, Justin Fields, Jared Goff, and Kirk Cousins, I don't feel as like committed to the quarterback position. You know what I mean? Like it's always going to depend on, the guys that you have in the room already.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. Situation is very important. So we'll see what happens. A lot of these it's nice to have 4 quarterbacks in the draft, but I don't think it's nice to have 4 quarterbacks in the first round. But I think people anticipated a little bit more coming into the year. I think they anticipated a little bit more bulletproof prospects that we didn't end up getting. So we will see what happens. The next, before I just want to shout out Zach Charbonnet. Here's my RB3 really quick. I'll show out a couple quick tidbits on him. 6'4", 214 pounds, had a very productive last couple years. I believe he had 1,680 all-purpose yards as a senior last year. Yeah, very impressive. I think some people thought he was going to disappoint at the NFL Combine, but that didn't end up happening. So I think he solidified that RB3 in the draft. I think we'll see him come over somewhere in the second round of draft. Dolphins potential. The Dolphins would be a nice landing spot for Charbonnet in that offense. Commanders, Falcons, Bears I had written down here as well. So.
Yeah.
No, just meant for the Bears.
I feel like they'd have to move him up. I think they pick at pick 56 and hang on, what is it? 50? Nope, that's incorrect. 61 and 53. That's what it was. I feel like he's going to go later than that. I feel like he's going to go in round 3.
Okay, interesting. I think he could sneak in around 2.
I don't like him right there. The Bears at 64, they do have a pick 1 of round 3. I wouldn't hate that. But again, I see him going, like I had said, in that 70 to like 75 range. I guess that's not too far off, but I've also seen him going to the Patriots at, I did mention the Patriots at 76. Yeah, I've seen that. Falcons too. I think they're hungry at the position. Good compliment to Algier, I feel like.
Falcons would be an interesting landing spot as well. I think I would be shocked if Zach, I think we're going to see some running backs go in the second round. So if he goes in the third round, I don't think he'll be able to hold up that 5th pick, or this draft capital. I think we'll have some other guys that we like ahead of him. So I do think we see him go in the second round, but the NFL draft is, devaluing running backs more and more. So, the third round is kind of like the new second round. So we'll see what happens. The next man up here, quarterback it is again. I'm going to take Will Levis.
Yep.
Just with that upside, I think we do see him go probably in the top 10, top 15 picks of the NFL draft. He was outstanding 2 years ago with Bijan Robinson at Kentucky, broke out, after transferring from Penn State. Big bodied guy, strong arm, has, all the physical tools you're looking for in an NFL quarterback, but struggled last year with injuries and, without a star cast around him. The Kentucky offense was a little bit of a mess, and that kind of showed on his tape as well. Untraditional throwing motion that he threw it at the NFL Combine, but however, like I said, has all the mechanics. It's big body, tough, character, leadership. You know what I mean? They all talk about that a lot with Will Levis. So you're not worried about him leading an NFL locker room. It's just the mechanics, the processing that are going to be issues for him. So I'm willing to take the upside here in the pick. What do you think about Will Levis?
I want a landing spot. I have him at the end of round 1. So I have him kind of mixed in at like 111, 112. Again, it's depending on need. We've gone over that already, but it's tough for me to pick his landing spot. It's really tough. Do you think he's going to wind up being like a top 15 pick? I don't know if I see it.
I do. I think the Raiders are a possibility.
Okay.
I think,
I was thinking the Raiders too, but potentially in round 2.
I don't think there's any chance he falls that far. I think we're going to see him early. This could be like a Malik Willis.
I like the arm. I love what I saw at the Combine. Don't get me wrong. I just feel like there's a little bit of separation between him and some of these other QBs that we've seen, that we've already discussed coming off the board. Their athleticism, their playability with on the run game. Like, is the big arm going to be enough?
We'll find out. We'll find out what NFL teams think, because I think that's always the big indicators. What NFL, that's why we do these after the NFL draft, because what kind of capital is an NFL team going to invest in them? I think I've heard of other teams potentially moving up to the 3rd spot. So I think if we see, if we see Anthony Richardson go at 4, or if we see another team move up to the 3 spot, I think the Colts come and play at 4. I've seen a lot of people mock him to the Colts. Apparently, the Colts do like what they see in Will Levis. They are big fans. So the Colts are a possibility. The Raiders are another possibility that I see. So, I don't think we see him get out of the top 15. I think there'll be a team that moves up, even if there isn't an obvious spot now. I think there'll be a team that moves up if he slips, especially if he slips past 10. I think there's a team that could trade up for him. So
let me ask you this. You're the Raiders. You want Jimmy Garoppolo, Mac Jones, or Will Levis?
That's tough. Jimmy or Will Levis. I think I would be my choices, but I think you're looking at some, Will Levis is obviously a lot bigger chance. Jimmy is a little bit safer. Maybe you try to bring in both. Maybe you want Jimmy to be a bridge quarterback again. So we'll see what happens. I did a mock draft and I had Will Levis going to the Raiders at number 7. So
okay.
We'll see what happens. It'll be an interesting spot. So what about you with the 9th pick?
Okay, give me 1 second. So we had Will Levis at, I'm just writing all this down. That was at 8, right? Yep, that was 8. All right, so pick 9. Super tough here for me. Super tough. I have these guys butt-ending each other. I like Jordan Addison or Quentin Johnston, and I feel like the landing spot I just need for either of these guys. I've told you I like Jordan Addison to the Ravens. It's a pretty unilateral move from Rashad Bateman, but I could also see Quentin Johnston going to the Packers at 15. That's tough. I'm going to go Quentin Johnston. Because I feel like he may have the higher NFL draft stock, bigger body receiver, going to be more physical, that downfield type of threat. Addison, more of a clean it up, lower ADOT slot receiver. I'm going to go Quentin Johnston. Super tough. They're neck and neck for me. Again, it's going to be based on the landing spot, but I feel like I like his physical build just a little bit more. Both skill sets I think can be leveraged at a high level in the NFL. Going to be indicative of landing spots, like I said, but I'll go Quentin Johnston at 109 here.
That would have been the same thing I wrestled with. Quentin Johnston could have higher NFL draft capital, wasn't anywhere near as productive in college as Jordan Addison, but
right,
he has all the
1,000%.
6'3", 208 pounds, 98th percentile burst score. Had a nice year, 1,069 yards, 6 touchdowns. Concerns are that he doesn't play to his size. He doesn't. He's not very good in contested catch situations. And playing against Big 12 cornerbacks is light competition compared to what Jordan Addison faced, obviously in the Pac-10 as well. Maybe not the SEC by any means, but still bigger competition there. So those are some of the concerns about Quentin Johnston. But with the NFL Combine, with him standing out as a receiver in this class, there aren't many receivers built like him. This is a class filled with undersized. Every receiver in this class is going to be compared to Devontae Smith, because that's the obvious, 5'10" light guy. Devontae Smith, he can be Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith is great. So I feel like Devontae Smith is an outlier, not somebody who is like fitting the new mold in the NFL. So I think Quentin Johnston, you're right. I do think Quentin Johnston is going to have a lot of NFL teams looking at him. There's not, like I said, there's just not many 6'3" guys in the draft like this, especially early on. Patriots, I think, were a landing spot discussed there. Packers, Chargers, Ravens, same places I had for JSN basically. So, all those would be interesting. Maybe Chargers he's the same receiver kind of as Mike Williams. So I don't know about that really, but I would like him on the Ravens, would like him on the Patriots, definitely fitting in wide receiver 1. Next up for me, I will go ahead and take Jordan Addison.
There you go.
Why he's here, very productive college wide receiver, first percentile size adjusted athletic score. 99% of wide receivers have a better size adjusted athletic score than Jordan Addison. So he ran a 4.49 40-yard dash at, I believe, I don't believe I didn't write that down, but it was 5'9", 174 pounds. I believe, I forgot to write it down, but I believe off the top of my head, that was his NFL Combine measurement. And that is, you were looking at 5'9", or no, I'm sorry. I believe he's 5'11". He's not 5'9". I need to look that up. I think he's 5'11".
I believe he's 5'11".
Yeah, 5'11". 5'11", 174 pounds. So that's very light.
Yeah.
Especially if he was 5'9", that would have been a lot bigger BMI. So for somebody that skinny, you want him to run faster than a 4.49. You know what I mean? Now not everything comes down to the 40-yard dash. He might have, it's a lot of it's form. But either way, it shows the effort they put into the off season. It is an indicator of speed. So Jordan Addison, not quite the athlete, and this factors in agility and burst score, not the athlete that you're looking for at a 5'11", 170 pounds. Devontae Smith wasn't a crazy good athlete either, though. So, Devontae Smith is not a crazy comparison for Jordan Addison, being that he had a 1,600-yard season in college, but, struggled with injuries last year, and that could certainly be the case with his size in the NFL. What do you think about that pick?
Oh, I don't hate it whatsoever. Like I said, it's very unilateral between him and Quentin Johnston. For me, I could go either direction. A landing spot, again, very indicative of both. But I don't think you're going to be feeling bad about taking either of those guys. So if you are aiming to get Addison, wind up leaving your draft with Johnston a pick later or 2 picks later, I don't think you're going to be complaining either way. Like I said, landing spot, very important here. I've mentioned the Ravens. Again, new unilateral move to Rashad Bateman, but I don't think that they were excited about what they got out of Rashad Bateman last year. Addison, a hometown favorite pick from Maryland, from Frederick, Maryland. Low key location there for Baltimore.
I think they were excited about what they got from Bateman in the first 2 games last year. Just like that's all they got from him. You know what I mean?
Well, that's what they were also excited about Lamar Jackson last season. Lamar Jackson had a booming entrance to last season, but again,
correlated with Rashad Bateman playing.
That's true. It was very boomer bust though. It was very boomer bust. It was similar to what I saw at Marquise Brown's entrance to the NFL. Oh shit, where did he come from? Huge production, limited amount of touches. That's the thing. Like are they going to buy into that again? Probably. Yeah, I don't think they're going to sell Rashad Bateman by any means, but those hometown picks, they're always more low key than people think.
I agree with that.
Selling jerseys, baby. It's a business. Selling jerseys.
So I believe, what are we down here? We down to the final 2 picks of the draft. Yes, absolutely.
111. I'm bringing this darling up the board, Mr. Jalen Hyatt. Showed out at the combine. Love his speed, after catchability, great hands. I have him going off the board to the Panthers at pick 39. Not a great outside receiver, but guess what? The Panthers need now a slot receiver. Just gave up DJ Moore. I have him getting paired up with CJ Stroud on the Panthers first round to second round pick. If that happens, I feel like he is going to get a ton of work. That would be a perfect landing spot for him. Now, obviously, if you go somewhere a little bit more crowded where they still might need a slot receiver, he could break out. But man, any receiver that lands on the Panthers is going to be in line for a lot of work. I would expect that they still play the game in free agency and go out and shop a pass catcher. But I feel like Jalen Hyatt in Carolina would be an absolute home run. Had him coming off at 110, and on my set of picks, we got him at 111. So I feel pretty good about it at the end of the first round.
What's interesting about Jalen Hyatt is the difference. This is one of those where the fantasy managers in the NFL have a big difference. Mm-hmm. At the NFL, apparently, really likes Jalen Hyatt. They some scouts have him as their number 1 overall wide receiver in the draft, and that's because of his speed, his burner, his playmaking ability downfield, and that's what's coveted in today's NFL. Kind of like that we've seen Devontae Smith and this Jalen Waddle's pumped up draft boards, Jameson Williams, guys like in that mold. And I think Jalen Hyatt kind of fits in that area, and fantasy managers are a little bit more down on him. He kind of fits in that 6th, 7th wide receiver range. So it does translate to fantasy football. What NFL teams for covering that deep threat. Some of the times that DJ Shark. Some of the times it's what they do to the defense, without the counting stats, you know what I mean? Taking guys downfield. And, that's where I think some of his value comes from in the NFL's eyes, So, it's just my caveat for fantasy football is, you know what I mean? I think the NFL is a little bit higher on him just for the, what he's going to do to the defense, the kind of coverage that he's going to command, as opposed to, counting stats for fantasy football. So,
well, I see him as more of a slot receiver. So I don't see him as a big field stretcher. I think in college, like almost 90% of his snaps came from the slot, something close to that. So I don't know if he's necessarily going to be used as like a higher A-dot receiver. And like I said, if he gets a spot like the Panthers where not a crowded room, I'm not going to be worried about drafting Laviska Shenault. You know what I mean? Like it's going to be a great situation. So we'll see what happens with him.
It'll be interesting. I have Zay Flowers and Josh Downs just slightly ahead of him.
Okay, I like Zay Flowers a lot. He's my next guy off the board. But I think a lot of folks have moved Boutte down their boards, and he was a lot higher. So I think there's been a little bit of just movement on the board in general.
I'm so glad you said that. I found it out. It is Booty. It is Booty. I confirmed it.
It's Butte, NFL.com.
No,
I thought I sent you the screenshot.
No,
I'll pull it up.
NFL.com is wrong.
NFL.com is wrong.
I'm telling you they
French.
are.
He's not from New Orleans.
I'm shouting out my new coworker who I trust, Cody Carpentier, over at Player Profiler. Boots on the ground at the NFL Combine. I was listening to his podcast this week. Confirmed, Booty. It is Booty. Matt Kelly says, no, it is Booty. I'm telling you, it is Booty. It is Keyshawn Booty. I will ride to the grave with this. I was right.
This is per Keyshawn. This is per Keyshawn.
Apparently so. I'm telling you. Apparently it is Booty. This is from the mouth himself. Apparently it is Booty.
He just doesn't want to be called Butte. This is another, chosen Anderson situation. You know what I mean? Like don't tell me how to say your name when every other
what
person
do you mean,
who
don't
knows.
tell me how to say your name. Oh my gosh.
Who is the other one? It's Tyrod. It's not Tyrod. It's Tyrod.
You know what I learned too? Now we're getting digressing here, but I learned that Jalen Waddle. I forgot how they say it, but apparently Jalen Waddle is not his name.
Waddell? Wadley?
Apparently, yeah. It's like he calls it pretty much his stage name. You know what I mean? Because people don't say it right, and he goes by Jalen Waddle. But yes, apparently Jalen Waddle. I forgot how they said it. I was listening to a podcast week, but apparently Jalen Waddle is not how you pronounce his name. It just like apparently we've been saying Travis Kelce, and it's Travis Kelce. I'm not doing it now. You know what I mean? We're 10 years in. I'm not going to Travis Kelce now. But apparently it's Kelce. Like thanks for letting us know, guys. You know what I mean? So it's interesting. You know what I mean? I feel like it started by broadcasters. You know what I mean? Like the broadcasters didn't research the name. They're like, so-and-so. And then it just sticks. And then the player's like, oh, that's my name now, I guess.
I just listened to pronounce names on YouTube and it said Butte.
Okay, so that's definitely not it. So that's what I mean. That's what people are posting out there. So
when I saw the breakdown of it, it was BOO dash capital TAY. That was like the pronunciation of it, like the pronunciation breakdown is Butte. Like
I'm
literally,
telling you, that's not it. It's not right.
All right, that's fine. My homework is incorrect.
Oh man, that is funny. I'm so happy you brought that up because I was wanting to tell you. I was like, man, as soon as I heard that, I was like, oh, I wish Bruni was here right now. All right,
it'll definitely be something we have fun with throughout the season. That's for sure. Fantasy football team names. There's definitely going to be some Butte references, I'm sure. Big Buttes.
Oh man, I can only imagine the fantasy football team names. Oh my goodness.
Buttes, everywhere.
Before we jump into the last pick of this mock draft, I just want to shout out our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. We're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy is heating up for March Madness. College Pick'em is a great way to get in the action, especially if your bracket is busted day one. Play Underdog Fantasy has your favorite college basketball player props. Head over to underdogfantasy.com and use promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit match. And you get $100, win $100 as well. Sorry, I popped off my little read for a moment there, but promo code SGPN. And we just want to thank you for watching. If you are watching on YouTube, if you wouldn't mind, please clicking the like and subscribe button. It would really mean a lot. It helps us bring you this free content, and we really appreciate it. Okay, so with that, I'm going to get to my last pick here. And, I thought this pick would have so much more value a year ago. Like, I'm looking at this now, and I'm just like, I'm disappointed. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm looking at. You know what I mean? There's a lot of great players left. But, man, I was trading for late first round 23 picks a year ago thinking, man, this is going to be like the Joe Burrow class when I was drafting Javonte Williams. And you were getting who was going in that class too? I mean, the late first round was just like, it was amazing. You know what I mean? Like through 112. Oh, was it Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle? Was that it? Or was that the year after?
3 years ago?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Were Joe Burrow and Jalen Waddle?
I don't think Devontae Smith was in that one.
No. I remember there were but there's been drafts.
This is year two. This is year 2 for Devontae Smith.
Oh, right. Yeah, you're right. So it was Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle going, in that last 2 picks. I remember of the draft that they went in. It was like 111 Jalen Waddle, 112 Devontae Smith. Those picks felt a lot better than these did. So just slightly disappointing. But I'm going to go with Devin Achane.
Okay.
I love him as a runner. He's a track star, 99th percentile. 40-yard dash, 4.39 here.
Mm-hmm.
1,102 rushing yards last year. Had a ton of receptions. Didn't translate to a ton of production in that area, but yeah, he has that kind of body type. He has that skill set to translate in the NFL. So I really like the potential here. He's never going to command a backfield. He's never going to get a ton of touches.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he can be very, very effective in the touches that he does get. Commanders, I had his possibility. Dolphins, Bears, Bengals, Chiefs, potentially, if he makes it at that last pick in the second round, would be very interesting spot for him, in my opinion, especially playing next to Pacheco. I think they would complement each other well. What do you think?
I have no problem with it. I have some other names that rounded out the end of my first round, but he's not someone that I'm like running to get because I feel like there's a little bit more depth after him. I've been targeting like Deuce Vaughn at his ADP. I think Devin Akane is still up a little bit higher because, like you said, he may not command a backfield, and I feel like Deuce Vaughn is kind of like in a similar scenario. So he's someone that I'm getting at a little bit of a later ADP that I feel offers kind of a similar skill set. So yeah, I have really no qualms against it at all. I just feel like it's kind of a similar type of skill set in an earlier ADP because of what we've seen out of him in college. The only other argument that I would make, another name that we brought up, is Zay Flowers to close out the first round. I think that he's going to wind up in a good position with a good landing spot. I have him off the board at 26 to Dallas.
Last thing I'll leave the listeners with today is, I just feel like the wide receivers. I've always been a wide receiver guy in my dynasty leagues, but man, it's become a little saturated. You know what I mean? Like I can get a wide receiver. Yep. I can get Zay Flowers anywhere. You know what I mean? Like I can, it's just, all right. Or even a Jalen Hyatt, you know what I mean? These smaller athletic receivers, it's just, man, if you look at the top 36 wide receivers in dynasty leagues, for example, they're so good. Like, you get down to wide receiver 36, you're like, wow, that guy's the wide receiver 36. Like what? You know what I mean? And so, it's just Zay Flowers and these guys are going to have to be really, really good just to crack the top 36 wide receivers. You know what I mean? It's just such a saturated position. At the end of the first round, especially, I have Jordan Addison and Quentin Johnson, and when JSN is my number one, but I have those guys, as a tier above. But after that, I think I'm just going to start hammering running back. Just start, you know what I mean? They're all not going to hit. It's but man, I'd rather take that difference maker there because I just don't know if I see Zay Flowers, Josh Downs, Jalen Hyatt. I don't know if I see any of these guys as like, man, thank goodness I drafted this guy. This guy's a difference maker on my fantasy team.
I don't know. Zay Flowers, the build, the speed, the cut ability, someone's going to use him as a gadget type of receiver. Like they're going to get him running back touches, in my opinion.
Yeah, he has that kind of. It's a real slight for him. I know it's a new NFL, but man, like asking a 5'9" guys are scary. You know what I mean? Asking them to be consistently productive in fantasy football. You know what I mean? I feel like he might be. One of those guys are usually more like gadget players. You know what I mean? Better NFL players than fantasy players sometimes. That's my concern. But
well, the gadget guys, man, they're taking over the league. I know
that's true.
The Debos, the CMCs, like. You hit on those guys and you win your league. You know what I mean? 2 years ago, you got Deebo Samuel on your roster. It's game over. It's a wrap.
Yeah. Wan'Dale Robinson, if he stayed healthy last year, could have been a good example of that. You know what I mean? If a player like in that build, Josh Downs and Zay Flowers kind of comparable to him, I would think.
Yep.
Well, we did it. 12 picks in. I felt like, we definitely have some different opinions, which is nice. I styled my quarterbacks a little bit earlier. You're taking, the other positions, which I believe is a little bit. I think it's a safer, you know what I mean? And if you're a bad team, I think there's running backs and wide receivers.
We're giving over-encompassing advice, right? So everyone's situation is going to be different. We definitely got to make sure that we touch on all bases. And the only other thing I'll kind of add to that is that if you know your league mates well, right? If you are a good fantasy owner, a good fantasy player, and your league mates, and you are kind of seeing like the differences between like mine and Emerson's take here on prioritizing the quarterback, leverage that. If you know that the first 4 picks are going to be quarterbacks, and you don't need one, maybe move back to pick 5, maybe move back to pick 6. Like, you need some nuance and strategy at the end of the day to really get the best return, in your rookie draft. Just really quick, I'm going to just run through our picks. So at 101, we had Bijan. Everybody's got him. CJ Stroud at 102. Jahmyr Gibbs at 103. At 104, we had Bryce Young come off the board. At 105, it was Jackson Smith and Njigba. At 106, flipped a sheet. Where are we at? Anthony Richardson. 107 was Zach Charbonnet. 108, Mr. Will Levis. 109, Quentin Johnston, 110, Jordan Addison, 111, Jalen Hyatt, and 112, Devin Akane. Pretty solid. Like, I don't think that's like dissimilar to what I've seen from other boards, mocks in general, or just people's legit just, rookie drafts.
Yeah, I think we got it down. I think, of course, the NFL draft will be the biggest indicator. Somebody in those first 12 picks, I can already tell you, is going to fall down that NFL draft board, and it's going to tank their value. So, it happens every year, every single year. It happens to somebody.
Who's going to be this year's Trey Lance?
Yeah, exactly. Somebody's going to fly up the draft board. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what offensive player is overdrafted because they're on the Kansas City Chiefs. You know what I mean? Who's going mid first round pick? Wait. Who's like a late third round talent actually? But
can't wait.
Oh man, yeah, that's a bomb that I'm not falling for again. It'll be interesting to see where the tight ends go. You know what I mean? Or is Darnell Washington going to be the next tight end, or is he going to be a tackle like some NFL evaluators we're talking about? So it'll be fun. I just accepted a couple different positions. You'll see my writing everywhere coming up. Player Profiler, DLF, Fantasy Football Face-Off, starting a podcast. TWSN's fantastic. I have their shirt on right here. So I'll be doing a lot of stuff. SGPN. Of course, I have this podcast every Sunday. So that'll be, we'll be seeing you next Sunday. Justin, what are you working on coming up?
We got free agency, buddy. We got free agency this week. Rob and I will be live, episode 2 of Heroes and Villains this Wednesday. It's my birthday Thursday. So, going to be celebrating that. Birthday. Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate you. So, another year older. A little wider, a little taller, getting after it. So not much else other than that.
I love it, man. Well, have a great day. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Please hit that like and subscribe. If you wouldn't mind, we would really appreciate it. And have a great rest of your Sunday and enjoy NFL free agency. Thank you so much.
Take care, guys.